Welcome back and thanks for joining us here at Silicon Beats. We're going to cover the basics to Ableton's drum rack today. Now for those of you that are familiar with the drum rack, some of this might seem redundant, but to those of you that aren't, you have to start somewhere. So here's the drum rack, and you'll see I've imported a few samples, but there's several different sections to the drum rack that you can access via these controls on the left here. This will expand your macro controls, which will allow you to tweak your kits on the fly. Then you have your chain list, which allows you to micromanage your samples, so you can trigger them. You can adjust volume and panning information. You can mute and solo them, and you can also hot swap them out in the event you want to change your samples. So let's say, for example, I wasn't feeling this clap. I just click on this little lightning bolt, and then I'm redirected to my file browser where I originally chose that sample, and I can browse through these other samples and find one that I like. Once I find one, I just click back on that lightning bolt, and you can see it's automatically transferred that sample for me. Then we can expand our simpler devices. What happens when you import a sample into the drum rack is that it automatically creates a simpler for that sample. In this case, it allows you to adjust the start times. You have various volume and pitch envelopes, different filters and LFO, and that sort of thing. Just a whole slew of detailed controls for editing on the sample level. Then we have our auto select function, and all this really does is correspond our MIDI notes with our chain list. So if I strike the kick, you'll see my chain list jumped up to my kick. If I hit my clap, it jumps down to my clap. Hi-hat. Your I/O device gives you some more features in your chain list, like receive and play notes, as well as the choke feature, which you can set for your hi-hats to get more of a realistic performance out of them. You can have your closed hi-hat choke your open hi-hat just by setting them to the same group. You can also activate sends and returns in the drum rack, which can make it nice for coloring effects like reverb and that sort of thing. So if I just click on this R, it'll allow me to drop in different effects. So we'll take a reverb. This is just any random preset. And as you can see, my chain list now has a send A control. So I can increase this. Let's say we want reverb on our clap. I can determine that in dB. And now it's feeding that reverb to my sample. So essentially you could assign, this to any sample you'd like, and it kind of gives you a way to incorporate some global effects. Now to drop in a sample onto the drum rack is simple. You just go to your browser where your samples are at, and they'll be in your samples folder underneath waveforms, and then you click on drums, and you'll see I have all these different folders with all these different drum sounds. So to take a sample, I just drag it and drop it onto a drum pad. And I can trigger it, I can solo it, and I can mute it there as well. Now for the macro controls, you can set these up using map mode. And if I just click on map mode, I can then choose any parameter that I want. Let's say we want to have the volumes of all of our sounds. I'll take the volume for my kick, click on it, map it to macro 1. Take the volume of my clap, map it to macro 2. Same for my hi-hat. So any of these parameters that turn green can be mapped to your macro controls. So it's just a matter of finding ones that are more valuable to what you're trying to do, and it's just a convenient way to tweak your kits. So you can see, I can set my volume, do it for my clap, and for my hi-hat. So you can pull up any kit that Ableton's pre-made, and you can see how they use their macro controls just to kind of allow you to tweak kits on the fly. But essentially that's the core to using the drum rack. We hope you found this tutorial helpful, and be sure to check us out at siliconbeats.com.